Paint it beige, or else. That was the note taped to my front door one muggy Thursday morning, written in bold black marker like a ransom demand. No hello, no polite request, just a threat. And the signature at the bottom? Patricia Hendris, HOA president. Around here, everyone called her the HOA Karen, because she had a talent for sticking her nose into everyone else's business. Now, let me tell you something about me. I'm not the kind of guy who folds when someone tries to boss me around. My house, my property, my rules. But Patricia didn't see it that way. She saw the neighborhood like her personal kingdom. And we were all just peasants living under her crown. Her issue this time? My house was painted a warm slate gray, tasteful, clean, and modern. But according to her, it disrupted the visual harmony of the community and clashed with the row of beige houses she lorded over like soldiers in formation. That evening, she marched right up to my porch, clipboard in hand, her eyes scanning my siding like a drill sergeant inspecting uniforms. "This doesn't meet community standards," she said, tapping her pen against the wood. "You have exactly 30 days to repaint it beige." I leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed. Beige? Seriously? The whole block looks like a sandcastle already. My gray house makes the neighborhood look alive. Patricia's lips pursed so tight you'd think she'd bitten into a lemon. "If you don't comply, we'll fine you. Daily." Now here's where she underestimated me. Most neighbors caved under her pressure, paying fines or reluctantly repainting to avoid drama. But me? I wasn't about to spend thousands of dollars just to make my house blend in like wallpaper. That night, I sat at my kitchen table, staring out the window at my gray siding glowing under the street lamp. Then an idea sparked. If she wanted beige so badly, maybe I'd give her beige, but on my terms. Not just any beige, her beige. See, the HOA had a logo, a hideous emblem, plastered across their newsletters and entrance signs. It was beige with some darker streaks. It was bland, boring, and ironically their sacred color. The thought hit me like lightning. What if I painted my house in the exact shade of the HOA's logo? Better yet, what if I legally owned that shade? Patricia thought she was playing checkers. I was about to play chess. The next morning, I walked into the paint store with a mission. I carried a printed copy of the HOA's logo, faded beige with awkward brown undertones that looked like spilled coffee. The clerk squinted at it and asked, "You sure you want this color? It's, well, ugly." I grinned. "Oh, I'm sure. Mix me a few gallons." When I got home, I stood in my driveway holding that first can like a weapon. My neighbor Mark peeked over his hedge. "What are you up to now?" he whispered, already smiling because he knew Patricia was involved. "You'll see," I said, rolling open the lid. It took me 3 weekends, a tall ladder, and more patience than I thought I had. But slowly my gray house transformed into the dullest, most lifeless beige imaginable. By the end, it wasn't just beige. It was the HOA beige. The exact shade from their logo, down to the last pixel. When Patricia saw it, she was ecstatic. I could hear her voice floating across the street as she bragged to another board member. Finally, he listened. Order restored. She strutted around like she'd won a war. But little did she know, the paint job was just step one. See, I had spent those weekends not only painting but also filing paperwork. After hours of digging online, I learned I could actually trademark a color if it was tied to a logo or design. And guess what? The HOA had never bothered to trademark their bland beige logo. It was sitting there, unclaimed, like a landmine waiting for someone bold enough to pick it up. So I hired a lawyer, filed the application, and within weeks, that shade of beige legally belonged to me. I was now the proud owner of HOA Beige, complete with a certificate proving it. The timing couldn't have been better. At the next HOA meeting, Patricia paraded me as her trophy. "Look at how beautiful his house is now," she announced, gesturing toward photos of my freshly painted siding. The room clapped. She beamed. That's when I stood up. "Actually," I said, holding up my paperwork, "you're all applauding my trademark. HO Beige now belongs to me. Which means if anyone paints their house this color without my permission, well, that's infringement." The silence that followed was priceless. Patricia's face went pale, then red, then somewhere in between like she'd swallowed a chili pepper whole. The war had officially begun. The fallout started almost instantly. Within a week, I got 3 knocks on my door from confused neighbors. Hey," said Mrs. Thompson from 2 houses down. "Patricia says we're supposed to repaint our houses in HOA Beige, but now she's saying we need your permission. Is this some kind of joke?" I showed her the paperwork. Notarized, signed, official. No joke. If anyone wants to use HOA Beige, they'll need a license agreement. Otherwise, it's trademark violation. Her jaw dropped. "You mean, we'd have to pay you?" I smiled. "That's exactly what I mean." Word spread like wildfire. Some neighbors were amused. Others were furious. But the funniest reaction of all came from Patricia. She stormed over to my house one morning, slamming her clipboard against her palm like a gavel. "You cannot trademark a color," she barked. I leaned casually against the fence. "Tell that to Tiffany Blue, or UPS Brown, or John Deere Green. I'm just following their lead." Her face twisted. "This is absurd. You're holding the entire neighborhood hostage." I shrugged. "No, Patricia, you are. You demanded beige. I just gave it a price tag." The HOA board tried to push back, of course. They sent threatening letters, claiming my trademark was invalid. But every time, my lawyer fired back with receipts, statutes, and case law. I wasn't bluffing, I had done my homework. Meanwhile, the irony was beautiful. Families who had already painted their homes, HOA beige, were suddenly in violation of my trademark. I didn't push hard on them, of course. I wasn't out to ruin my neighbors. But I did make sure Patricia knew I could. And then came the cherry on top. At the next HOA board meeting, Patricia unveiled a brand new community banner. Guess what color it was? Yep, HOA beige. I stood, cleared my throat, and announced, "As of this moment, that banner infringes on my intellectual property. You either pay me licensing fees or you take it down." The board erupted into chaos. Patricia's voice cut above the noise, shrill and desperate. "This is harassment." But the members weren't listening to her anymore. They were looking at me, some hiding grins, others whispering. Because for the first time, Patricia wasn't in control. Her beloved beige had become my leash on her. And the best part? I hadn't even played my final card yet. By now, Patricia was unraveling. The once untouchable queen of beige was backed into a corner, and she knew it. Every attempt she made to rally the board ended in whispers, side eyes, and quiet chuckles. The neighborhood was tired of her reign, and my trademark move had exposed just how fragile her control really was. But I wasn't done yet. I wanted a finale that would leave no doubt. I invited the entire neighborhood to a backyard barbecue one Saturday afternoon. Ribs, burgers, the works. Even people who usually avoided HOA drama showed up, curious to see what I had planned. When everyone was gathered, I pulled out a large banner I'd had custom made. It was a parody of the HOA's official logo, but with one twist. Underneath it, in bold letters, it read, "HOA beige, property of me." The crowd roared with laughter. Cameras flashed. Phones recorded. Patricia, who had reluctantly shown up to keep an eye on things, looked like she might faint. "You can't do this!" she screeched. "Oh, but I can," I replied calmly, pointing to the framed trademark certificate hanging on my patio wall like a trophy. "This color is mine now, legally. And since your entire brand relies on it, you either pay me royalties or rebrand." The neighbors erupted again, this time in cheers. For once, everyone wasn't afraid of Patricia. They were laughing at her. A week later, the inevitable happened. The HOA board held a vote. Patricia, red-faced and trembling, tried to argue her case, but her power was gone. The members ousted her as president, stripping her of the authority she had abused for years. The new board's first order of business? They voted to scrap mandatory color rules altogether. People could paint their houses however they wanted. Blue, green, pink, or yes, even beige. My neighbors thanked me like I'd freed them from a dictatorship. As for me, I kept my house painted in HOA beige as a reminder. Not because I liked the color, it was hideous, honestly, but because it stood as a monument. Every time Patricia drove by, she had to see her old weapon turned into her greatest humiliation. Months later, she moved out of the neighborhood altogether. Rumor was she tried to join another HOA in a different suburb. But let's just say, once someone Googled her name, her application didn't get far. And me? I sat on my porch one evening, sipping a cold drink, watching the sunset bounce off my ugly beige siding. Victory never looked so bland and tasted so sweet. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and drop a comment below telling me how you think Karen should be exposed next time. Your support helps bring even more crazy HOA stories your way.